Welcome. This is Matthew Bronson, and this is Conversations with Matthew Bronson. And today we have I'll call a very important conversation. I have a nice woman from the Agora Crisis Center who I became aware of Agora Crisis last year when I went to the rail yard, and they had a table set up. And rather than me totally confusing you as to what Agora, what Agora. Instead of me confusing you as to what Agora Crisis does, let me just introduce Molly. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And what is Agora Crisis Center?
Agora Crisis Center is an all-issue crisis line and online chat service. Our mission is to provide free, confidential, compassionate help to anyone in need of emotional support.
I understand. But you say it's an all crisis?
All issue crisis
all
line.
Issue.
Helpline, whatever you'd like to call it. So people can call us, anyone can call us and talk about anything that's on their mind. So you don't have to be in crisis to call. People call us about everything under the sun. Kids call us because maybe they're struggling in school, maybe they're being bullied. Senior citizens call us because maybe they're coping with chronic mental or physical disabilities, maybe they've lost a spouse, and everyone in between.
And one of the motivations for me working with the students from UNM down at the rail yard was that I became aware that Agora, and I guess other crisis lines, actually assist seniors. And I don't know why I didn't make the connection. I just thought, well, it's students, so why would an 80-year-old not feeling well call? And once again, I was wrong. And so, because Placitas has heavily weighted in the above 50, I'll be kind and say that. And we have a very, very active community center that some people call a senior center. They're all involved in education and the Meals and Wheels and trips and all that. And I know that, myself included, being in that demographic, there are days when it's not just the happiest day. Stuff happens, especially as you get older.
Sure.
So Agora is right here in Albuquerque. Let's start with when did it start? Why did it start? How did you get involved?
Well, so Agora started in 1970. There was a student at UNM that approached one of his professors and said, I'm struggling with stuff, I need to talk. And they said, well, go to the Student Health Center. And he did, and they couldn't get him in for a couple weeks. So he went off campus to a mental health facility, and he couldn't pay, so they couldn't see him. And so this 18-year-old kid, feeling hopeless and feeling alone, went home that night and shot himself. And so in response to his death, a group of students and professors at UNM got together and said, why wasn't there somewhere that guy could have gone or called and somebody could have just talked with him and been nice to him, essentially. Maybe that would have kept him alive till morning when he could have gotten some more help and something would have changed.
Especially because he was even asking for help.
Right. And so, there's a lot of people that realize they need help, want help, and then have real difficulty accessing it. And so Agora is a place, like I say, anybody in the world can call us, talk about anything. So a lot of folks call us who are just having a bad day, and they just want to get something off their chest, and they just want to talk about it to somebody who's not involved. Because with our friends and our families, we tend to give each other advice and tell each other what we should do, and we want to stop and tell our own story. And it's nice to call somewhere that somebody says, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to try to fix you. I'm not going to judge you. I just want to listen, and I want to understand what you're going through and try to help you figure it out.
Because families sometimes will go, suck it up, Matthew.
Right.
You think you have problems.
Yeah.
So back to 1970, the University of New Mexico here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Was there a brainchild? Was it like a grassroots thing from the students, or was it the
very much so?
Yeah.
So in the 70s,
friends,
I don't think so. And there's some mystery about, like, we don't even have that guy's name, which I wish we did, because I would love his family to know the legacy that has come from his death. But around 1970, crisis centers were popping up around the country, and most of them in a very grassroots way. And Agora was one of those. And so we were begun as a student organization, and we're still a student organization. We're the only crisis center like this, I found in the country. And we are accredited by Contact USA, who has about 60 members across the country, crisis centers of all types and sizes. And we're the only one, Agora is the only one that I've seen, which is a student organization at a university, but we serve the whole community.
And any organization, even if it's doing super good things like Agora, needs money. So,
yeah. Do you have some?
Yeah. I have so little I should probably be calling Agora when we get done.
Yeah.
Where's the money come from?
So we get a small operating budget from the Associated Students of UNM, so the student government, because of us being a student group. They give us some money to hire a couple of work-study students, turn the phones on, buy some paper clips, things like that. And they're very generous, and they really help us. And I hope they're proud of it, because our student government funds, like I say, a really unique organization. My salary, at least for this year, is paid for through the university, which we're also very grateful for, because there were a couple of years I worked for free. And then we have a contract with the Department of Health to do statewide youth suicide prevention. And we just received an award from the United Way of Central New Mexico to help us with our youth suicide prevention efforts.
And then the university also gives you space to...
Yes, the university provides us space, so we don't pay rent or utilities or insurance, and so it's a good thing to be at the university.
Right.
We also do accept private donations, and we get a few $1,000s a year from donors in the community, which is fabulous.
Sure. Well, let's start with that, because we want Agora to keep going.
Me too.
You have a website.
Yes.
And it is?
agoracares.org.
And I have been on it, and it's laid out really well. There is certainly a lot of information there that, unless you're really involved with this aspect of your life, you're probably as uninformed as myself. That crisis hotline, anybody, probably teenagers, young adults, I want to kill myself. Mm-hmm. So I've got this card I picked up, and so I call. Mm-hmm. From what we spoke about earlier, suicide is not your number one
it's not.
business.
We take about 25,000 calls a year. About 20% of those involve suicide as a topic of discussion. So that might be somebody might be having thoughts of suicide. They may be worried about someone else. They may have lost someone to suicide. About 5% of our calls involve somebody who is at imminent risk of suicide. So that means that they have a plan and they're really contemplating doing it soon, or maybe they've already begun an attempt when they call us.
Isn't there a large percentage, and I don't want to make this whole interview about suicide, but large percentage of suicide candidates who will plan it all out with really no intention of doing it? Somehow that process of, I could do it if I wanted to.
Maybe. I suppose that's possible. I think in general, suicide, and I said this earlier to you, I think that it's not about people wanting to be dead. It's about them wanting their pain to end and just not being able to figure out how to make that happen in the moment. And so suicide comes up as a possible way to escape that pain. And so if you think of the worst physical pain you've ever been in, like in the moment, what do you do to get away from that pain? Like your instinct is anything to get away from that terrible pain. And so something that people don't always understand is that psychological and emotional pain can be just as intolerable for people, can be just as excruciating. And so for some people who are in extreme emotional pain, suicide comes up as just a way to get away from the pain.
So as someone active within the community, are there telltale signs that I could go, hey, Sally needs to talk to somebody?
Sure. And we do a lot of training in the community, so if there is a community group that thinks we'd like to all get together, like your senior center here in Placitas, like that's the kind of group that we come out and do trainings about how do you recognize that somebody might be at risk, and then what do you do? How do you help? So like some of the warning signs that you might see some people exhibit are giving away treasured possessions. That's a big one, and it's not just somebody giving, gifts to their friends, but, when a photographer gives away all their cameras, or somebody gives away their pets.
Right.
And there might not be a real good explanation for why they're doing it, just that they aren't going to need them anymore.
To me, that would turn me towards Alzheimer's. But it's not.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's, I mean, it could be that too, I suppose. But it is a common warning sign that somebody may be
Right.
thinking of suicide. You know, the things that go along with depression, having 9 out of 10 people who attempt suicide have a diagnosable mental illness. And that can include, you know, depression and anxiety and things like that are, to me, the common cold of mental illness that a
Right.
lot of us struggle with at some point in our life. So somebody may be, you know, depressed. You may see signs of depression. They may be using more drugs and alcohol. They may be taking risky behaviors. They may be talking about death and suicide. They may be wrapping up loose ends, like making their will, paying off debts, getting their paperwork in order. So there's a lot of warning signs that you might see. But one of them is that people will sometimes talk about suicide, and they'll talk about it in maybe a very vague way, like, you know, I wonder what it's like, or I just don't think I want to be here anymore, I'm just so tired I can't do this much longer. And then some people will be very explicit and say, you know, I wish I were dead and I think I'm going to kill myself. And so then you know what you're dealing with, right?
It's different now than, excuse me, than in 1970 with the whole, at least in parts of the United States, assisted suicide being an option. Is that sometimes a bad choice?
That's a really individual choice,
Okay.
and you know, one that I don't think any of us can say is good or bad. And a lot of people see assisted suicide, or what some are calling compassionate release, and that's when someone chooses to end their life when they're already dying, and maybe they're dying a very painful death. And so some people see that as kind of a different issue in many respects. And that's a big can of worms.
Well, and I don't know all of the legalities surrounding it, but can someone just say, I'm not having fun anymore?
Yeah.
If they're not terminal, I just don't want to play anymore. Is that allowed?
I
do you need a note
believe
from
the
me?
states in the United States that have laws about this, that's probably not.
Okay.
But there are countries where you have to have any reason at all.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's very scary.
It is kind of scary, yeah.
Now, if someone is depressed, whether they are suicidal or not, but you can tell they're not going through a good time.
Yeah.
Can, as a friend, are there things I should say or things I shouldn't say, or should I just say, you really should call Agora or someone like that?
Mm-hmm.
Can I do more damage than good? I know I could, but could like a nice person?
Yeah, let's see. What could you say that would make it worse? I really believe if you're coming from a place of true compassion and caring, I don't think you're going to say anything that will make it worse. But things that maybe aren't as helpful are anything that's judgmental, or telling people they can't do it or they shouldn't do it, or let's get your mind off of it. And we say these things with good intentions, right? When someone in our family feels bad and we think, well, let's go to a movie and get your mind off of it. But imagine me working up the courage, like having struggled maybe for weeks or months with thoughts of suicide. Should I do it or shouldn't I do it, or how should I do it? Or I don't see people talking about suicide in the media in a healthy way, right? I see it in movies and stuff. So imagine struggling with that burden, and maybe coming to you and finally figuring out a way to say, oh, I'm just not sure I want to stick around much longer. I'm thinking of killing myself. Like, what if I work up the courage to say that, and you say, oh, let's go to a movie and get your mind off of it.
Right.
You'll feel better. So I think you can imagine that for some people,
Not
like
if you
even
see the
though
price of popcorn.
right, like you might really mean well and you're trying to help your friend feel better, but to present somebody with such an important, big piece of information and to have them say, I don't really want to talk about that, I think can be really invalidating to people. And so I think the most valuable thing you can say is, wow, that's important, tell me about it.
Right.
You know, let's figure this out.
Well, that's a good segue into Agora Crisis Center. And let's give out the number many times.
Our local number is 277-3013.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's 24 hours away, 7 days a week, depending on the availability of volunteers.
Okay.
Because our phones are answered by volunteers. And so what might happen is I might have one person on shift and I might have 6 people on shift. And even if there's 6 people on shift, the 7th person that calls will get our voicemail, because we don't have like a waiting queue. And if we're already on a call with somebody, we don't put them on hold to answer the other line.
Right.
So what happens and people will sometimes say, I called, you guys weren't there. But it's probably that the volunteers were helping other folks. And so what happens then is you get a voicemail, says, we're sorry we missed you, here's another number to try, or you can leave a message and we'll call you back.
But you at least give them another number so
Sure.
that they're not
Yeah, and the number that we give out, that I also like to give out, is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline,
Okay.
which we are part of, and that's a network of crisis centers all around the country. And that number is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-SUICIDE. Both of those numbers will reach any of us on the network.
And the Agora website.
agoracares.org.
.org. So the people who answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. They're the best.
How does someone get involved? Do you have a profile you're looking for? You want students, or can anybody?
Anybody can volunteer. You have to be 18 and over.
Okay.
And then you can apply on our website, and then we invite you in for an interview, and we talk with you to make sure that it's a good fit and that it's going to be good work for you to be doing in terms of, on the phones, and is it going to be good for you? Because often people may have just gone through a crisis of their own, and then they'll think, I want to go help other people because I know what that was like, which is great, but we want to be sure that you're in a good place before we sort of put you on the phones where you might get a call about a situation just like the one you lived through recently. So we screen people. Then volunteers go through a 40-hour nationally accredited training. And once they're ready and we're ready, we put them on the phones, and then they sit 1 4-hour shift a week, and we ask people to commit to be with us for at least a year, 220 hours, which is about a year.
Right.
Most people stay longer. A lot of people stay longer. Some students, because we're on the campus at UNM, a lot of our volunteers are students, and so they're resume building, they're getting ready for grad school and graduating, so they may just stay that year and move on, but then some people stay much longer. And we do have some volunteers who are retired and looking for stuff to do at that point in their life.
After you've gone through the training, can you be like remote and just have your phone tied into the system?
No, not with phones. We do, however, do that with online emotional support. So we started doing chat a couple years ago, and Agora was the first university in the country to do that. And we helped actually write the accreditation standards and training for other agencies that are doing that all over the country, with Contact USA and now the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Crisis Chat. So the way that works is it's the same kind of what we call supportive listening. So what we do is not counseling, it's not therapy on the phones, it's supportive listening. And so it's the same on chat. And we primarily did it because youth, I had read this article that said the average teenager who owns a smartphone, 50% of them will never use it to make a phone call. So, right, because the kids these days, they're all texting.
I know.
Right, and so we started doing chat as a way to reach youth, because we know that suicide's the second leading cause of death for people 24 and younger. And so it's working beautifully, because on our phones, maybe 10% of our callers are youth, but on chat it's like 85%. It's pretty amazing.
And are there any consistent stats over the years of the number one reason people call you is
loneliness?
Loneliness.
Mental illness, which again, depression, things like that. A lot of people are looking for referrals. We also back up 211, which is a service that Albuquerque had one of the first in the country. It's a national effort to connect people with social service community agencies. So if you need a counselor, or you need a shelter, or you need a food bank, you can't pay your utilities, you can dial 211 from any phone, and it connects to the United Way of Central New Mexico during business hours, and then Agora backs it up in the evenings and weekends for them. So that's about finding people resources in the community. And a lot of our regular callers want resources also, but they usually want to talk about their situation for a while first.
I guess people understate or downplay that loneliness qualifies as a crisis.
Yeah, it's devastating. And we have callers who've called us, multiple times over the years, and some of them check in with us a little bit, on a regular basis, largely because they're lonely. we may be the only person they talk to in a day. And so for them to be able to call us for a few minutes and just, chat about what they're doing that day and what their cat did that day, and, we're happy to talk to them,
You're going to get a lot of calls from
I know.
Felicitas.
Well, another program that we have sort of in the pipeline is reassurance calling. So this is a program that we're hoping to get started soon, and it's one that Contact USA centers do around the country. Reassurance calling is where housebound elders, or just people who are housebound, will sign up with the crisis center and say, would you call me every day, or would you call my mom every day at 10 in the morning just to make sure she's up, and ask her if she took her heart medicine and see if she's okay. And so reassurance calling helps housebound elders especially stay independent longer,
Right.
living in their homes, because somebody's going to call you once or twice a day at a pre-designated time and just check on you, see if you're okay, see if you need anything. And if you're not, if you don't answer, then there's a whole protocol for, well, we're going to call the neighbor, we're going to call the daughter, we're going to make sure somebody goes over there and checks on Mrs. Smith to make sure she's okay.
Right. So it's, I had a friend whose mother was in like a HUD housing
Mm-hmm.
out of state, and the house manager or whatever would make the rounds, and they had a rule that you had to turn, like, something that hung on your doorknob. You had to turn it
Open your
over
front
every
curtains
night or every morning to say,
I'm
I'm still here.
yeah.
And I think we minimize that we have an aging population, and waking up and being alive is sometimes a big accomplishment.
Sometimes that's a good day when you
Yeah.
can get out of bed. And I also really love the idea of having our volunteers who are students being able to connect with seniors in the community in this way too. I accredit crisis lines for Contact USA, and everyone I visit that does reassurance calling, the volunteers all say this is my favorite part, because I get to call these people every day and they're so happy to hear from us, and we just chat for a couple minutes. And
Do you have a protocol if they don't answer?
yes, if they don't answer, then you have a pre-arranged plan, and you say, well, if you don't answer, we're going to call you back maybe 3 times, and if you still don't answer, we're going to call your next door neighbor and they're going to come check. If we can't get the neighbor, we're going to call your daughter and they're going to come check. If we can't get your daughter, we're going to call police and they're going to come check. So yes,
And the police are cool with that.
Yes, it's called a welfare check, and so there's always a plan for here's what we'll do if you don't answer.
So you can't get lazy, or people
Right.
are going to really start bugging you.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but when I met the students down at the rail yard, I kind of got the impression that Agora was like local, like the rail yard.
Yeah.
But you're national, international. You're
We
not
take-
competing with the Sandoval County Crisis Hotline or the Santa Fe Hotline, if there even are such things.
There is one in Santa Fe. There's another one here in Albuquerque. And again, we answer calls from all over the country. Most of our calls do come from the greater Albuquerque area, but we get calls from Canada. We get calls from all over the
How do
place.
they find you?
Internet.
Internet.
Although some people, we had a caller one time who used to call us from the Philippines, who had moved there after living in Albuquerque and liked us so much that still called us from the Philippines. So
Exchange recipes.
yes. Well, and that's sometimes that loneliness factor. One of our stories we tell in training, so people have heard this one, is that in the way back in the 70s, this elderly gentleman calls us the night before Easter, and the volunteer answers, and the caller says, "Yeah, I need to know how you cook a ham." And the volunteer's thinking, I'm a college student, I cook ramen noodles. But
I open up Spam.
Right. But we always know at Agora that when somebody calls and asks for a referral, often they're using that as sort of their ticket to get on the phone, because it's weird to start that conversation. And so as the volunteer was talking with this gentleman and looking in our bookshelf, we might have a cookbook, and he said, well, so tell me why you're cooking a ham. And so once this guy felt sort of safe enough and relaxed and tell his story, well, he was in his 80s, and his wife of 50-some years had died about a month before. And she'd cooked him every Easter dinner in his adult life, and he knew that it involved ham, but that really wasn't what he needed
Sure.
to talk about. And so the story goes that they talked for 3 hours on the phone, and the next day he brought the ham down for the volunteers at Agora.
Oh, nice.
So I like that story because it's an example of just such a simple thing as showing up and answering the phone to help strangers in distress. Like that got that man through Easter that year.
Oh, yeah.
And who knows.
And do you do follow-up calls?
We do with some callers. Now, if a caller has talked to us about suicide and they've been, at some risk of suicide, but by the end of the call we're able to help them, sort of vent some of those feelings, and if they're able to tell us, all right, I don't think I'm in any danger tonight, then we make a plan with them. We call it a safety plan, and we talk with them about how are you going to stay safe from suicide, what are you going to do if these thoughts come back in a big way, who are you going to call, how long can you stay safe, things like that. And part of the safety plan is, do you want us to call you back tomorrow and see how you're doing?
And, all right, so we've made an agreement for you to call me back. But, if I don't give you my number, do you have my number? Do you
Nope.
keep a record of my number?
Nope.
Are there no stats on, like...
We do not keep, we don't ask people their names. I mean, in that case, we might ask for a first name. But we don't ask names, we don't ask phone numbers, except in that kind of follow-up thing. So our service is anonymous. I mean, the only time we would try to find out, who a caller is if we had some reason to think that they were really in some danger while we're talking to them. And so if a caller tells us that they are in danger while they're talking to us, then we're going to do everything we can to try to help them and get help to them. But when people call us to talk about suicide, we want to be sure they know that we're not going to hear that word and say, yikes, we're sending the police right now.
Sure.
We do not do that. We will talk with you for hours if that's what it takes to get you through the night.
So that's interesting. You mentioned that a couple of times. There is no time limit.
No.
You don't go, well, I'm going off shift now. Sally's going to take over your table.
I know. The only people that we ask to kind of limit is, we do have a few folks that call us really regularly and they like to touch in every day, and we're fine with that, but we do tell them, can you just call us once a day? And so that's the only kind of limit. But the regular callers or standard callers can talk as long as they need to. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things about Agora real quick is the volunteers. So I have almost 200 volunteers who staff my phones, and it's about 90% college students because we're at UNM, but we
Sure.
do have volunteers from all over the community. Here's the incredible thing: I've never known another nonprofit that had to turn away volunteers, and we do training 3 times a year.
That's unheard of.
I know, and every time we do training, we train about 50 new people. We turn away 100. It's incredible to me that there are that many people in our community that want to come and sit through 40 hours of training and then commit to sit 4 hours a week on the phones to help strangers in distress. Like, to me, that says an incredible thing about our community, and especially our college students at UNM.
Not that we needed another reason to think how special we are out here, but
Yeah.
this is a biggie.
It's cool. Yeah.
There has to be at least once a day, especially your regular callers. I want to come down and talk to you. I want you to be my friend.
Sure. Yeah, we have to.
It's like, oh, can I have your number? And then you give me the wrong number. I've been rejected before.
Yeah, once in a while that happens. Not that often though, because people call us primarily because they like the anonymity of it. They like to be able to call somebody who's not part of their life and just talk about stuff that's on their mind and talk about their emotions, and they like that that's somebody who's not involved in their life. And so once in a while people will want to go out for coffee after a call, but we can't do that.
Yeah. And tell me again, how many calls a year do you do?
About 25,000 calls a year.
What's that work out to per hour or something?
Oh, I don't even know. And it's so very, people always say, what day of the week do you get, what month of the year, and it's very random. It's really hard to say.
Is that always the holidays?
No, that's a kind of a myth about suicide.
Sure.
That's actually one of the lower times. New Mexico consistently has one of the highest suicide rates in the country. We're always in the top 5. And
go New Mexico. Why is it?
That's a good question. Other states that have high rates are Montana, Nevada, Wyoming, Alaska. So a lot of rural states,
All right.
maybe it's hard to access services.
Lower economic
conditions. I think there's a lot of things that play into it. It's hard to say. But I lost my train of thought.
So I mean, we're up there statistically with another thing we can add to.
Yeah, I know. We're New Mexico.
Are there things that we can do, or that the Crisis Center can do to help turn that around?
I think that at Agora and the rest of us in the state, there's the New Mexico Suicide Prevention Coalition, there's New Mexico Crisis Nexus Line, there's lots of really great people in the community doing work in this field. And so one of the things that we always try to say is we want to increase awareness of the scope of the problem, for one thing, because I think a lot of people have no idea how many people die by suicide in our community every year, and it's shocking. And so because we're not sure, when I say we, I'm generalizing in a big way, but we as a culture, we're not sure how to talk about suicide or if we should talk about suicide. And so what happens then if you're one of those people having thoughts of suicide, you don't know how to respond to that. You don't know where to get help. You aren't sure you should tell anyone because you don't see people model a healthy way of coping with that.
Right.
So we in the community are always trying to talk about that there is help available, that there are people who care, and that suicide is a choice that you don't have to make, that there's people who want to help you figure out a better choice.
Is it fair to say that the way it is represented in the media and the TV shows, and that has kind of miseducated us? Because you see, I don't know whether it's a drama or a sitcom or whatever, someone's always going to go, well, I'm just going to go kill myself, and they're not in crisis. So are we kind of not educated really how to look for the signals?
Sure. And again, it's that myth that if we talk to people about suicide, it'll make them want to do it, which is a big myth because you're not introducing new information. People know about suicide.
I know when I hang out with friends and talk about food, I want to go eat.
It does make you hungry, right?
Right, but this is not the same.
No, it's not the same. And so when somebody is at risk of suicide and you're worried about them, it's better to talk with them about it and say, that's an important thing that I want you to be able to discuss with me, and I want to help you figure it out, and I want to help you stay safe, rather than saying, let's not talk about it because that scares me. Yeah. Right. That's another one of our our taglines at Agora, is that we are comfortable with your discomfort. And so, but it's not easy, right? Because when it's a family member or a friend and they tell us they're struggling, they tell us that things are so bad for them that they think death might be better. That's hard to hear for us when we're involved in their life, especially.
Well, yeah, because people, especially family, because we know each other so well, we can do that. Go, you think you got problems?
Yeah.
You should hear my problems. You want to play that one-upsmanship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm amazed and impressed that 40 hours of training could turn me into a sensitive person.
I could try. We're pretty good.
And you don't try to pair it up with seniors in crisis with other senior counselors, or
no?
Because how does a 20-year-old talk to an 80-year-old?
I know, and sometimes some of our callers will say that. I got shoes older than you.
I do.
And we try to explain. I understand that, because what they're really asking is, are you going to understand what I'm going through? Are you going to identify with the issues I'm facing? But the truth is that no matter who we talk to on the phone, we've not walked in anybody else's shoes but our own. And so our goal on the phone is to try to understand, help me understand what you're going through. Even though I'm 50 years younger than you, I want to understand what it's like for you, because once I get to your age, it may be entirely different, so it doesn't matter. So our goal is always to try to put ourselves in the caller's shoes and understand things from their point of view, because on that call, that's all that's important to us, is what it's like for them. It doesn't matter what we think. Our opinion is kind of unimportant when we're on the phone with people.
Now, you're few years younger than myself, but I can't imagine when I was 20 or 22 wanting to do this, and you get more people than you can handle.
I know.
And some people say, oh well, society's falling apart and it's every man for himself, and apparently not.
Not at UNM, not in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you deal with the crisis community around the supplier, like yourself, around the country, around the world. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you really have a better product.
I think we do a good job, and I think our training is really good, and we get letters from people who've left us and moved on in their lives, and they write back and say, the training I got at Agora helped set a foundation for my work as a psychologist, or it helped me be a better mother, or it helped me be a better friend.
Anything.
Yeah, because what we teach in our training is how to be a good listener. Right? Because we've all had conversations with other humans. It's not rocket science.
No.
But there are some ways that we try to do it on the crisis line that are different than we do even in our own personal lives.
Being in public eye for Fortune 50 companies or whatever, I've had training in media, mm-hmm. and communication. Being a good listener mm-hmm. is not something you're born with. It's not just communicating. It's being on the other end, how to listen mm-hmm. so that the speaker can tell you what they want to.
Right, to make a safe space for people to sort of bare their souls to you. And isn't it a strange thing to think at a crisis line, strangers call us every day and share very personal, very private stories about their lives. And so we really want to honor that trust that they place in us. And so in our training, we talk a lot about how do you make someone feel safe? How do you let them know that you're not going to judge them, you're not going to laugh at them, you're not going to tell them they shouldn't feel that way, no matter what they tell us. You know, we want to be respectful and compassionate to anybody that calls us. And it does take some training, but it comes out so beautifully in our volunteers.
What about if, you know, I decide to call? Can I say, I want to talk to Agent 123 that helped me the other day?
No, we don't do that because, you know, volunteer shifts change all the time, so we sometimes, you know, can't predict when people are going to be there. And we want the public to feel like they can call and talk to anybody at Agora, and everybody's gone through that same training, and everybody cares, and everybody wants to help. And we try to avoid getting attached to a single volunteer, because people then start to feel like we're either their new best friend,
right,
which we're not exactly, or they start to feel like we're their new therapist, and we're not that either. And so trying to help people, you know, keep those boundaries and feel like they can call and talk to any of us, and we all want to do a good job.
And that has to be a constant issue of, you know, you can't give out legal advice,
Sure.
You can't give out financial advice,
Medical advice.
Yeah. Excuse me. You're getting calls from all around the country, all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
What languages do you support?
Well, and this is something that bothers me. We don't have a bilingual crisis line in New Mexico. Now we have access to language lines. We can connect people or give them a number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline has a Spanish-speaking network. But because at Agora we have some bilingual volunteers, certainly, but we don't have money to say, here, these hours we'll always have somebody there who speaks Spanish. If we could get, you know, that's one of the things we're always is on our wish list. If we could get money, we would love to have a designated time that people could call and always know that there'll be a Spanish-speaking volunteer there.
Can TTY people call you?
We don't have a TTY anymore. We did for a while. We had it for about 10 years, and we never once used it.
Okay.
So people just didn't seem to access us that way. But now that we have chat online,
right,
that's a beautiful thing for the deaf community, is to access us via chat.
And is it like 20% come in that way because they feel more anonymous, or?
I'm not sure. No, it's probably a smaller percentage than that of chats compared to our phone calls. We take maybe, I should have looked at numbers before I came in. I'm going to say we take about 4,000 chats a year.
Okay.
And we take about 25,000 calls. So
I know chatting with customer service online, and it's not the same as a crisis hotline, usually very unsatisfying, and it results in me just bucking up and calling them.
Oh, I know.
Or I've called various customer service departments, and for one reason or another, the person I'm speaking to doesn't get it, or doesn't want to get it, or whatever, and it results in a hang-up.
Right.
So if someone calls Agora, and I'm speaking with you, and I go, do you use your real name, or do you have stage names?
We have aliases.
Okay. I only know one other industry that does that. But, can I say, you know, Venus? We're not clicking. Is there someone else, or I don't want to talk to a woman. I think only a man will understand, or I want to speak to a gay person.
So the one time that we will allow people to kind of hand off a call to another volunteer is if someone has called and says they want to speak to someone of the same gender, because sometimes that involves maybe a sexual assault or some kind of topic that they want to speak. A woman will want to speak to another woman, or a man will want to speak to another man. So that's the one time that if someone's available, we will hand that call off. But that's the only time that we do that.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point, Molly, in that sexual assault, or something that is not quite that severe, but something made you uncomfortable, put you in crisis. Campus environment, that's more likely than, well, maybe it isn't. Maybe there's senior crises relationship. But what do? You just say, call the police, or?
We ask them if they need help. So if someone calls us, maybe they've just been assaulted, we will ask them if they're safe, talking on the phone, and explore that a little bit, make sure they're safe on the phone, and then we will ask them, do they need help? Do they want us to send police or an ambulance or something? And if they want it, we'll do that. But if they don't want it, we're certainly not going to. And so we'll just talk with them and see what they do need.
Because I can imagine maybe at least once you got a call where, my husband's so drunk he's in another room with the gun and he says he's going to kill me. And that's just hold on, I'll call 911 or something.
We will offer that for sure, and if they want us to, we'll do that.
Because you don't know who they are or where they're at.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
So wow.
Yeah, so occasionally people call us in a situation like that where safety is an issue right away, and we'll do everything we can to get help to them. I
guess the big picture of that question that I just figured out was sometimes you're taking calls that you shouldn't take. You can help with, I shouldn't say shouldn't take, but you're not the best solution. Like you weren't the best solution for how to cook a ham, but ultimately you were.
Right.
But if I was just raped or someone's holding me at gunpoint or whatever, someone else has to get involved.
Probably someone else is going to get involved. Now, we can be an intermediary in that situation, but sometimes if someone's just been sexually assaulted, they may not want to call the police right now, and so we're a good resource then for them. I mean, there's also the Rape Crisis Center in Albuquerque, which is great. So that's a referral we would always give in that kind of situation, but we will certainly talk with them and figure out what we can do for them.
Since we're up here in Placitas and we've established that we're a little older than the university student, are there areas that either ourselves as seniors or almost seniors or people that we know, things that we may not see as crisis, but we talk about loneliness, but what other issues do we have that really we could benefit from Agora?
Any issue. I mean, I can't think of a situation that would be inappropriate necessarily to call Agora, because we all have stuff that just we need to talk about. And sometimes you want to talk to somebody who's not involved in your situation.
Right.
And one of the things that we really talk about a lot in our training is that crisis is really subjective. And so what's a crisis for me might not be for you, and vice versa. And so people call us with all kinds of situations that they may say, this is the worst day of my life because
Walmart was out of my brand of soap.
Right?
Can you believe that?
Yeah. And so on the phone, we may think, well, can't you get it somewhere else? Or we might think, is that really a crisis? But you know what? To them, it's a crisis. And everybody's entitled to their own crisis. And so we're going to say, wow, that's terrible.
But it might
Tell
be like
me about
the ham,
that.
where it's really something else.
Exactly. Because usually,
am I hired?
Yeah, come on down. Because usually,
you
somebody
don't want me on the
phone. People that have a crisis like that, like
right.
Walmart was out of my favorite brand of soap. I bet that's not the only thing going on that's frustrating them, that they're feeling anxiety about, that they're feeling angry about. There's probably more to it than that, and that was just the final straw.
Well, you've done this for 25 years.
Yeah.
We can probably go on for longer. How did you get involved?
I was a graduate student getting my master's degree in counseling. I had been recently widowed, I had 2 small children, and I had gone back to school. And in my counseling program, my friends said, there's this place on campus that you should really go volunteer because their training is fabulous, and the people are so nice, and the work is rewarding, and they have good parties. And
you're
I said,
a single
I'm
mother
in.
with 2 students, 2 children,
Exactly.
and a grad student, so you needed more to do.
I needed things to do, and I was looking for training and experience that was, a safe way to start getting my feet wet in terms of working with people in distress. Because again, on the phones, we're not counselors. That's not what we're doing. But that supportive listening piece is the basis of all behavioral health care anyway. And so it turned out to be true. And the other great thing about Agora is that the people who volunteer there, they're going to be nice people, because who else is going to volunteer at a crisis line, right? And so it's a really amazing group of people, and it's a tight community. We have lots of marriages and babies that come out of Agora, and people meet their new best friends and stay friends for the rest of their lives. And so it's a pretty fabulous community.
And you were never approached to be whisked away to another institution, or?
Well, I've had a couple offers, but my heart's at Agora. And so I volunteered for 10 years, and then I took over as director in 2000.
Okay.
And
so what's next for Agora?
well, I'm hoping some fairy god person comes and gives us a bunch of money, and we can start a bilingual line, and we can start a reassurance program. And, we have lots of things we'd love to be doing, more outreach in the community. But we're just going to keep doing our thing every day and doing it the best we can.
I didn't know if there was something psychologically related or technology related that is going to allow crisis centers to go to the next level.
Chat has really been that thing, yeah. Online emotional support, so chat and texting. Some crisis centers also take texts from people. That's the new frontier in crisis intervention, and it's taking off all over the country.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's instant, and it's anywhere. These are crazy times we're living in here.
We're in the future.
I know. Where are the flying cars? Can you share what the annual budget is?
Our annual budget is about $150,000, and let me tell you, when I took over as director, it was $8,000.
Okay.
So we feel like we're just rolling in money at the moment, But most crisis centers that I've visited around the country that take the number of calls that we do, have the number of volunteers we do, their budget would easily be 10 times that. And
wow.
So we do a lot with very little, and it's because of the volunteers.
I think the point that I was trying to get to, and hoping that your budget would be small, with $150,000 is pretty small.
It's small for a crisis center, yeah.
That if people would like to help financially,
yes,
$20 is going to make a big difference on an organization that runs on $150,000.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted to give more.
Yes, we are always happy to get donations. And the thing about, I guess all nonprofits live in this world of soft money, where this year we're good, and next year we could be broke. And
right.
So we're always looking to build up our reserve to help us through those rainy days, which we've had some of. If people want to donate, they can do that in a few different ways. They can mail us a check. They can go to our website, and there's a connection that sends them to the UNM Foundation.
Which
and
is agoracrisis.com.
agoracrisis.org.
Okay.
And the UNM Foundation is the fundraising wing of the university, and they sort of hold our donated money there for us. So you can donate online with a credit card. You can mail in a check. You can, if your employer participates in the United Way Community Fund campaign that happens every fall, that's a great way to give to Agora or to any nonprofit that you want to. And so with that, they can take the money out of your paycheck. You say, sure, take $10 out of every paycheck, or take $5, and it's easy. You don't notice
50.
it, or 50 or 100. Yeah. And you can donate directly to Agora, or you can give to the community fund. And that community fund, I have to give a little shout out to, because in New Mexico, we have an amazing United Way in central New Mexico, and they raise I think they're up to like $30 million in their fall campaign, but a lot of that's designated to specific nonprofits. Around, I want to say $4 million is given to the community fund, and that fund of money is what goes out to nonprofits in the community who volunteer review panels at United Way decide are best serving the most vulnerable in our community. And so I always have to encourage people. I love it when they give to Agora, but that community fund is a really important thing and close to my heart.
Do you have fundraising events?
We do. The last
bake sales?
Yeah, I know. We do have a bake sale here and there. The last 2 years, we've had a very successful fundraiser that we're hoping to have again, but we have to change the name of it because someone in another place said that it belonged to them.
They had a copyrighted fundraiser name.
They've
Only in America.
They've copyrighted a punctuation mark that we used in our fundraising. That's not a colon, but
right.
Yeah, we had the semicolon tattoo project, which was a fabulous fundraiser we've done for a few years, and other crisis centers are doing it. But yeah, someone has trademarked the semicolon, and so we're coming up with a new rebranding of that, because the semicolon is used by many people around the world as a symbol In writing, the semicolon is a point where the author could have stopped but continued to go on. And so the semicolon has come to represent people who have survived, have lived experience with suicide. Maybe they had suicidal thoughts and were able to choose to go on.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I thought it was the
it's a cool
top
thing.
half of my little text thing where someone's winking.
Yeah, it's the winky face.
Yeah, but
Yeah, and
I'm not going to use that anymore.
I know, and so we have many people in the community who want to do it, tattoo artists that want to do it, and so we're hoping to rebrand that. If somebody has a fabulous new name for it, let me know.
And so what is the fundraising event?
People would go to local tattoo salons around town and get a semicolon tattoo, and then Agora would get a portion of the proceeds from that.
Okay, but no other, like an event where there's music?
Yeah,
or...
we don't have a gala event, mainly because those kind of things, we'd love to have
Right.
that. But in working with nonprofits around the country, what I see, the ones that have a big gala event like that, there has to be at least one person who works on it full time for months, because to make any money at those, you have to really put a lot of work into them.
And
Now,
invest a lot of money, there's seed money.
Yes, exactly, and we just are not in a position
not
to have
there
that.
yet.
I mean, when I say our budget's $150,000 for, like I say, for us, this is huge. That's the most we've ever had. And but we've had a couple of community groups who've actually done fundraisers for us, and that was amazing. So the Rainbow Car Club in Albuquerque did one at the Balloon Fiesta Museum a couple years ago during the Balloon Fiesta, and we had a plated dinner, and that was a great thing. And so we've had a few groups say, just contact us and say, we want to do this for you because we think you're great.
Okay. And the best way would be to go to the website.
Go to the website, agoracares.org, and our email that is there. There's a contact form on there that comes straight to me.
As I mentioned, I became aware of Agora last year when the rail yard opened, and then I happened to be down this year, and there's a table there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you all there?
We're there every
season?
other week, yeah,
Every week.
because they want to share that space with other nonprofits, and so we're at the rail yards every other week, just handing out information and trying to just tell people about us and what we do. Usually, a couple of my volunteers staff that table.
Yeah, they were great. It's
Yeah.
worth it to just
Yeah.
go down and chat with
Oh,
them.
the rail yards is great fun too. Yeah.
And then you have outreach. You'll go almost anywhere.
I tell people I'll talk to anybody who'll hold still long enough.
Okay.
And so if you have a community group and you would like us to come and talk for just a few minutes and say, this is Agora and here's what we do, and take a brochure, we'll do that. If you'd like us to come and talk a little about suicide awareness for an hour or two, we'll do that. And then we do a day of suicide intervention training, and we do a 2-day training, which is called Assist. And that's sort of the Cadillac model of suicide intervention done all around the world. So we are happy to come talk to groups about whatever is helpful.
Do you have anything that is like geared towards seniors?
Yeah, we do definitely go out and talk to senior groups about how they might use the crisis line, how to maybe help friends that are struggling with depression and thoughts of suicide, and yeah.
Well, I think I know who we might be suggesting this to.
Good, good.
Well, Molly, thank you so much for coming up here from Belen Farm, or Bosque
Bosque, I
Farm?
live in Bosque Farms,
Right.
yeah, so drove up through the smoky,
as you drive by, wave.
smoky. Yeah.
And thank you. So this has been a conversation with Matthew Bronson about the Agora Crisis Center, housed right here in University of Mexico, taking tens of thousands of calls a year. So anyone listening, since we stream on KUPR.org, if you or someone you know needs some help, give them a call. And so until next time, this is Matthew Bronson for KUPR. Thank you. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
Find out what it is all from